Hello, 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 and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I am a master manifester, and I'm sure you are too, because you're watching content like this. The name of this channel is Holistic Manifesting, because I believe in whole mind, whole body, and whole being experience when it comes to manifesting these amazing lives that we choose. What I am discussing in this video is the real meaning behind spiritual beings having a human experience. And this probably is a sensitive subject for some people because I'm talking about death to a certain degree. And I know that that is a touchy area for some people when we go into subjects of death and mortality. I'll say those words. What I have been realizing lately is that when we talk about spiritual beings having a human experience, we spend so much time on the idea that this life is a simulation, that what we're experiencing is not necessarily real, and that the real deal of who we are and the real deal of like our existence is the spirit, the soul that's inside of us. And when we leave this place, this is when the soul is free again and it gets to be the fullest version of itself. A lot of people believe in this way. And because of these things, we have channels and, YouTube channels, and we have a lot of material related to things like manifesting, because the thought process is, well, you're not truly in this physical environment hardcore. And if you tap into the spiritual aspects of who you are, then all the stuff that you want to have access to, all the experiences you want to have, all the relationships you want to have, all that stuff, it would just be right in your vicinity. It'll be added upon you, just because you have relinquished a lot of your human limitations, put it that way. But there's an even deeper conversation that I'm realizing here in life is that one of the most deepest and truest meanings behind human beings having a spiritual experience is the process of dying, is the process of mortality. When a human being is in the process of leaving the physical body behind, I think we can truly understand that the physical body is just one element of who they are, and that it can no longer be a vessel for how the spirit wants to experience the human body, the human experience, how long it no longer allows for the spirit to experience the vessel in the way that it chooses to experience it. So as we look at that whole entire process, we can even see how human beings are limited to how they want to express themselves based on the confinement of this human body and this human experience. So we hear a lot of people talk about the 3D world, right? 3-dimensional. That's just like this very physical thing. If you get really particular about that, height, width, and depth, and that's us. Height, width, and depth, everything around us is 3-dimensional. And then the 4-dimensional part is going to be time. I hear that often. Time is the aspect of it. So you can really pinpoint something really specifically if you know the height, width, and depth, and then timing of it. I was listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about the dimensions the other day, and it made more sense to me than it ever made in my life. And he was saying, picture yourself meeting someone in a particular place, and you give them the coordinates, and you have to tell them, okay, I'm going to meet you at the corner of this and that. And if it's on the ground level, you'll say on the corner at the ground level. If it's in the building, you'll say on the 44th floor. So then you have all 3 dimensions met. And he was just like, but you can't truly meet at the same place if you don't know the time. And the time is the 4th dimension. And he was like, so we'd miss each other if we didn't add time to that, right? And so I'm a strong believer that the 5th dimension is the spiritual aspect of what our experience. It's the energies that are flowing through us at any given time. And so because of this process, human beings have a really hard time expressing the fullest versions of who we are through just the 3D experience. I always say that, like, if you're a writer or you're an artist or you're a cook, even if it's anything like that, the art and the experience that you have in your head is never going to be what's on the paper at the end of the day. So that's a very frustrating thing when you write books. What you really want to do is convey this really specific emotion, this specific idea, this specific experience. And because it's so clear in your energy, it's so clear in your brain, you try your best to sort of get it on paper. And so there's a frustration that you have as an artist a lot, because it's almost impossible sometimes to give people verbatim what you're feeling on the inside. So when someone resonates with it at like 90%, we're like in shock, and we're happy. We're like, oh, they get it. But there's always going to be a place where you and that person have a deterrence when it comes to what you were trying to get out and what they received from it. It's never going to match up just in this perfect sort of thing. And so I was wondering about, just the experience of the spirit and how important it is to be able to be in a vessel to where it can truly dive into this whole entire human experience. And when that's no longer the case, the spirit gets ready to start leaving that space in order to go experience it, probably in my mindset, through another human being that's maybe arriving into this earth. Having this thought process hit me, it really made me see something like mortality a lot different. It's like I was sitting and trying to be sad about the idea of mortality to some degree, and I was having a hard time with that. And when this idea popped in my head, not idea, but this concept became more clear. I've heard many gurus talk about this over years and years, and it kind of went in one way and went out the other, because like many people, I've been very attached to experiencing this life and attached to who I am in this life, attached to Jameelah in her 3D experience, and just feeling like, this is who I am. And even though intuitively I know that's not the full case, there's still aspects of me that feels that way, especially when it comes to like being a mom or being a sister or being in relation to other people. There's a part of you that's real grounded in that factor. But more recently in life, I've been having a hard time being truly connected with the notion of being attached to or being sad about this life to some degree. And that's not saying that there's not moments or days where it comes back and I'm very human. I'm very human in the experience. But the vast majority of the time, I see it all as all these various aspects of spirit, whether it's one spirit, whether it's multiple spirits. But eventually, this body is decaying. This body is deteriorating. This body, once it gets to like 40, 50 years old, whatever, starts to go on a downhill climb. It goes up for a while, then it's on a downhill climb. And no matter what we do to it, and no matter how we try to preserve it to a certain degree, we can have a better experience in our avatars, but we can't keep the avatar around forever. And if we can, we don't know how yet. And even think about times where, you look at religious books and stuff, there's still a time stamp on how long the people were alive. Even if you say, oh, they lived for 700 years, and a lot of people feel like it's parables, I do too. But I mean, even if this was possible, there's still a finite point to where that human body was going to have enough. That human body was going to say goodbye. And so what we're left with at any given time is the memory and the feeling that people have left behind with us. If we don't see someone, say they live in Seattle and you live in New York, and we don't see them for a decade, and we don't know whether they're alive, we don't know whether they're, having a good life or whatever it is, we're just not even sure because we haven't had contact with them. Let's pretend like it's early 90s and people used to lose contact with each other. And if we think about it like that, you have this old friend, and every time you talk about them, you're telling good stories. You're like, oh, we used to hang out and do this. Oh, we used to do that. And in your mind, because you're not sure whether the person is here or they're gone, it feels very present to you. It feels like something that's happening now. You feel like my friend is fun. She was fun when we hung out. That is still a real thing. That's happening in my lifetime. It's happening in my experience, in this life experience. So if we think like that when it comes to things like mortality, then a person can never truly go away in our life experience. In our life experience, they existed in that form. They were impactful in that form. They were that spiritual being having that human experience. And we got to experience him that way. Because if we are to believe that somehow other people going away is a finality thing that we think it is, then that means that we are somehow delusional about our own going away. Because our own going away will come. And if we don't believe that this is a cycle that keeps on going over time, then we'll get hung up on somebody leaving our life and feeling like that's the end of their existence in our life. And it can't be possible because they've already been there. We've already experienced them. They've already taken up space in our heart. They've already taken up space in our mind. They've already taken up space in our whole entire experience of life. They've impacted us deeply. So when we go on in life, we may be sad about the moments where we can't share a specific thing or whatever with them. But just like when people aren't around me, and just like when they're not in my immediate space, I think like so-and-so would really think that's funny. And they're still with us and they're still around. I just don't feel the need to call them in that moment and kind of laugh about it. But I know they would giggle about it because I know who they are, because I've experienced them in this lifetime. And so it's just the reality of how life actually works. And if we get too hung up on, a person leaving our life or leaving our space, and that's not to say you don't miss them and they're not beautiful people and all those sort of things. This has nothing to do with that. This is separate from that, what I'm discussing now. It just means that somehow we're in a delusion that we're not going to be the same thing to somebody else. That one day we're not going to be in the same position as somebody else is going to be looking at us and thinking, oh, this person is no longer here. Because there's nobody that's sitting in our vicinity right now that's not going to be here someday. And that's including ourselves. So for me, that's an epiphany that I had most recently about the real meaning behind, a deeper meaning behind spiritual beings having a human experience. It's about detachment. It's about the present moment of knowing that it happened. It's happening, right? Unless you put a timestamp on it, then it's in the present moment. Like you can look through your old pictures and say, this is happening because it is happening now because it's happening in your lifetime. And your lifetime is the only now that you have. So whether something happened when you're 4 years old and whether it happened when you're 94 years old, it's still now because you only ever have the present moment, and it happened during your span of life. So that whole idea of a human being having a spiritual experience really is hinged upon the idea of detachment, the idea of understanding that nobody comes here to stay, and that whatever it is you want to experience, whatever it is you want to be, do, or have, there's nothing in you that should be stopping you from doing that, because there's nothing to hold on to. What you think you're holding on to is already gone. From the moment we come on this earth and we take our first breath, our last breath is already planned. So what is it we're hiding from when we can't experience the totality of the human experience? And one of the biggest aspects of the human experience is the idea that it goes away. So I hope that made sense to a lot of people. It's a depth that I don't usually broach all the time, but it's something it's very important in my life, and it will be for the whole experience of my life. It will be something that has been there and impacted me on a deep level. And just keep that in mind. You are always a spirit. You are always a spirit living this life and being pushed out through this individual avatar that you are in. This avatar that had specific parents, this avatar that had specific siblings, this avatar that decided to take different routes in life to different careers, different friend groups, different countries, different cities. And then after that spirit experiences all those things that are wonderful and complete in that lifespan, it will move on. You will move on as a spirit, as a soul. It will move on. So, anyway, Hopefully that made somebody feel better about the whole entire experience of mortality and what we do here. And yeah, it can still be a simulation for a lot of people, which is real. But what is it in this simulation you want to experience? And are you holding yourself back from it to hold on to something, this human life that we can't hold on to anyway? Or any of the people in it. So that's why embarrassment, don't waste your time with that. We're all the same, and the people don't mean anything. Like, it's just, they mean whatever you let them mean. Whatever you make them mean in your life, that's what they mean, right? Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.